Now, Luffy's awakening is definitely one of a kind, definitely one that we haven't seen in the series, and for a reason, right? But I think there's one thing that a lot of people are overlooking when it comes to Luffy's awakening, because it is absolutely insane when you actually go in depth in what it's actually doing, especially when you take the amount of things that he's capable of in this form. And today we're going to be diving in what Luffy is doing in Gear 5 and what this form actually entails, and how its awakening is very different from what we've seen throughout the course of this story. But before we get into this video, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. Let's go for 500 likes. Subscribe if you're new here, and hit the bell if you want to get notified for future videos. Now, Luffy's awakening is the first showcasing of a mythical Zoan awakening in the series, and prior to this we had no knowledge of what this was capable of, because mythical Zoans don't really share the same similarities as regular Zoans, because they have mythical powers on top of being an animal or a creature. So when it came down to mythical Zoan awakenings, we were kind of in the dark as to what it was capable of, because we hadn't seen it in the series yet. But of course, with Luffy versus Kaido, we have seen the first mythical Zoan awakening in the series, and it is very special, and this could be telling as to what we might see moving forward with mythical Zoans that we do encounter in the future. Now, Kaido was at the pinnacle of what I would consider a Zoan user in the series, so I think we might see Kaido awaken in the story. Even though some people might not think that might happen, I think it's going to happen. But how his awakening is going to be different from Luffy, we're not going to be sure, because again, mythical Zoans are different from each user, therefore different abilities, right? Even though Luffy might be a special case within even the mythical Zoan awakening. However, it should follow a scheme that we can sort of follow through, right? And so when it comes to mythical Zoan awakenings, based on what we saw from Luffy, it seems like they gain two powers from their awakening. One from the Zoan powers of the revivability or recovery time, as we saw that Luffy was able to revive from the dead, as well as the mythical powers that they possess, such as either rubber or Marco's Phoenix Flames, or Kaido's elemental control. That power also gets awakened, so they gain two abilities when they awaken. And again, I go more in depth into how mythical Zoan awakenings, because it was stated by Kaido that they share traits of Zoans and then traits of Paramecia. So it's like the awakening of both a Zoan and a Paramecia in one devil fruit. This is what the awakening of mythical Zoans entail. But when it comes to Luffy's awakening, there's something absolutely insane that I think no one has really thought about or talked about recently, and it's almost mind-boggling, right? Now, when it comes to the Paramecia traits of Luffy's awakening, there's something that struck me as very odd, and that is that Luffy shares 3 different types of Paramecia awakenings all in one combination, and I'll elaborate more on this, because yeah, it is absolutely insane. And I think this is partly the reason Oda made Luffy's fruit into a god fruit, because this would not be possible if Luffy's fruit was just a Paramecia that awakened, right? It had to be a mythical god fruit to awaken to achieve this level of power, because it puts every Paramecia's to shame, honestly. Now, to move forward on this, we need to talk about the Paramecia class. Now, when it comes to the Paramecia class, there's something that we need to address, and that is that Paramecia awakenings are very distinct from one another, because not all Paramecias work the same, and so we're going to see variety when it comes to their awakening. Initially, from what it looked like, Paramecia awakenings seem to have the ability to control the environment. We saw it with Doflamingo, we saw it with Katakuri, kind of saw it with Cracker as well, and so at that point in time, the consensus was that Paramecia awakenings for the most part is environmental control, turning the environment into their ability. But we also have to take into account that all of these guys share something in common, in which they're able to produce their ability. So in terms of the Paramecia class, Katakuri and Doflamingo would fall in the producer class, and so it makes sense as to why their awakenings are the same. But that doesn't go for individuals whose devil fruit don't work in the same fashion, and in this case we have Law and Kid, in which we come to see not only how their awakenings differ from each other, but also from Katakuri and Doflamingo's. In Law's case, we come to see that his awakening is an augmentation of his ability, where he's able to augment his ability to a new level and achieve things that he wasn't capable of doing before, Kroom being one of them and the other being Riroom. And so Law's awakening is one of those awakenings in which his ability becomes more potent, right? Another person that could fall into this class, and this is kind of unconfirmed because we don't necessarily know if it's an awakening, but I think it's an awakening, and that is Magellan. Magellan's awakening would fall under the line of augmentation of one's ability, because he is now manipulating poison that is more potent than the last poison that he had in base form. So with Law, his awakening falls under the augmentation of one's ability. Next, we have the ability to control or manipulate the body of others, and this is one that falls under Kid's awakening, in which Kid, we knew that he was able to control metal, but he wasn't able to control anything other than metal. And so what Kid's awakening allowed him to do was to magnetize objects that weren't metal, including people. And we see this in the fight against Big Mom versus Kid, in which he's able to put magnetic properties on Big Mom and also objects that weren't necessarily metal. Now, I don't know what I would call this awakening type, but for the sake of this video, we're just going to call it body manipulation, in which a user is now able to not only affect his body or the surroundings, but also the bodies of other people. And that is pretty much all the types of awakenings we've seen in the series. So when it comes to the Paramecia class and how much it varies in terms of different powers, we've seen 3 types of awakening. Augmentation of one's ability, meaning that the user's powers becomes more potent. Law and Magellan would fall under this class. We have environmental manipulation, which is Doflamingo and Katakuri, which are the 2 confirmed awakened users that we know for certain have that type. And with these guys, we know that they have the ability to not only produce their element, but also turn the environment into their element and then manipulate it. And then finally, we have the contact or body manipulation, which is the ability to not only affect your body and the environment, but also the bodies of other people, which again, Kid would fall under this class. And so now that we've gone over that, we're now going back to Luffy here. And something that you would notice about Luffy's awakening is that he shares the traits of all 3 types of awakenings, Paramecia awakenings we've seen in the series. So he has the augmentation of an ability, the environmental manipulation, and finally body manipulation. And again, we have proof that this has happened because he did show his powers against Kaido. First, let's start off with the augmentation of his ability, your ability becoming more potent. In the case of Luffy here, we come to see that his rubber becomes more rubbery, to the point that when Kaido hits him, his face takes form of Kaido's club. His elasticity is also much greater, in which he can create a fist that is essentially the size of an island. So we see that he can stretch more, he can inflate more, and we see that the limitations of what he could do before has been removed, of course in the context of rubber. And of course this would fall in line with the augmentation of one's ability. The next is environmental manipulation, which again is the Katakuri Doflamingo thing. In the case of Luffy, he's able to turn the environment into rubber, or give it a rubber-like property in which any material that he touches becomes rubberized. We see that he's able to rubberize lightning, the floor, anything, right? And again, this would fall under the class of environmental manipulation. And finally, we have contact or body manipulation, which is the ability to affect not only yourself, but other people. And the example we have here is when Luffy is hitting Kaido, we see that Luffy can not only affect the surrounding, but he can also affect Luffy's Kaido's body, in which when he makes contact with Kaido, Kaido's body turns into rubber. Initially, a lot of people were confused when, you know, Luffy's fist went into Kaido's head, but again, in reality, Luffy is just turning Kaido's head into rubber, making it stretch that much and delivering, I guess, more power into his blows, right? So we see that Luffy is able to manipulate the bodies of people that he touches. So in other words, Luffy's awakening, in terms of the Paramecia aspect of it, has 3 different types of awakenings which we have seen from other devil fruits: augmentation of an ability, environmental manipulation, and contact or body manipulation. And that is just downright broken. And again, he might even have more abilities that he hasn't shown yet. I think Oda, even though he's fighting Kaido here, didn't really show a lot of what the Sun God's ability is truly capable of. And again, it's, from what we know, is based on imagination. So we can only imagine how creative Luffy is going to get later on as the story progresses, right? But that is pretty much it for this video, guys. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video and comment down below what you guys think. Do you guys agree with this idea slash theory? If you want to take it as a theory, I would love to hear your feedback. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content, and hit the bell if you want to get notified for future videos on this channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Ferrospace, but it is Ferro, guys, and I will see you folk later. Peace.